This is Luis Cejoyos. He made the movie The Cove. Let's see what he has to say on this podcast about progress for dolphins in Japan.
Towards that eventuality. When we did that film, they were killing 23,000 dolphins and porpoises every year in Japan for human consumption. In the last year I looked, it was like 2 years ago, I think they killed 1,610. So it was down over, I think, 93% since we started that film. So films are very, very powerful weapons for social change.
Louis does not know what he's talking about. Here's the 2020 Japanese catch quota for dolphins and porpoises he is referring to. It's 11,028, not 1,600. 2021 was 11,007. 2023 was 10,920. There was never a 93% reduction when he said there was, or ever. And any changes in Japan would be a result of internal metrics by Japanese fisheries. They would not change because of dolphin activism in Japan.
They were killing 23,000 dolphins and porpoises every year in Japan for human consumption.
Some are killed because fisheries view them as pests eating up fish stocks. They are also used as animal feed, pet food, fertilizer, or they are discarded. Dolphin meat is low quality. It sells very cheap in Japan. Japanese people don't want it. 5 years after whaling restarted in Japan, this food is still failing. People are not picking it up. Dolphins are part of Japan's whaling scheme. They call dolphins small whales and just group them together. This food has been on life support for years in Japan. This food is a culinary artifact that only Grandpa remembers. Japan moved on decades ago.
I mean, certainly they're not serving dolphin meat for school lunch anymore in Japan. Are you able to hold on to that level of hope and optimism? I mean, The Cove came out in 2009. It's 2023. Like, when you look back, how much progress has been made? What still, has yet to happen that maybe you thought would have happened by now? Like, when you look at, that world.
Yeah, I guess it's the captivity trade. You would think that, because that's the economic engine that drives that, they're not killing them because, for $600 a dolphin, it doesn't pay for the gas.
Actually, Louis, it does pay for the gas. All these places in Japan kill dolphins every year, but none of them catch dolphins for aquariums or captivity. And some of their catch quotas are smaller than Taiji's. Paying for gas is never a problem. They are subsidized by Japanese taxpayers, not by aquariums, so there's always gas money. If Taiji stopped catching dolphins for aquariums and the entertainment industry, they would just keep catching dolphins to kill them for food, like the other small fisheries already do. They caught dolphins for food in Taiji before dolphin shows started, and before the first aquarium. It's an urban legend that Taiji would stop killing dolphins if the captive trade ended. But there is evidence people are sick from this food. So focus on what you can prove. For starters, Japan has the most aquariums per capita in the world, and not one dolphin show has been closed in Japan. Good luck closing every aquarium to test this myth. But let's get real. If every dolphin show and captivity ended in Japan and across the world, Taiji would have financial support to continue killing dolphins. The deluge of donations from right-wing Japanese would be massive if Taiji were ever under serious financial threat. Taiji is ground zero for Japanese nationalism. And the Japanese government would simply grift more taxpayer money and send it over to Taiji as needed, especially after foreigners got involved there. Ironically, foreign groups have sealed the fate of future generations of dolphins in Taiji. And Kyoto Senpaku makes sure this food is distributed throughout Japan, even though Japan doesn't want it. Incorrect information from someone you think would know about this topic in Japan is common, and it sums up this issue. Hollow victory laps and misguided myopathy on one place, and that's Taiji, where the Cove was made. This begs the question, if the person who made the Cove is wrong about Japan, what's really happening in Japan? You're about to find out. Take a toilet break and get a snack. We're about to go on a deep dive here. Before the Cove, there were no laws for dolphins or whales in Japan. Now, 15 years later, there are still no laws for these animals in Japan, captive, wild, or dead as meat. There are also no laws for this food. As a result, the food is untested and unregulated in Japan. Dolphin and whale meat are black markets in Japan. Food safety experts in the Japanese government have never tested this food, which is sold in stores and restaurants. And they admit they have never tested it. How is this possible in a country full of germaphobes who wore face masks before the pandemic and who take 2 showers and 1 bath every night? The only way the Food Safety Commission of Japan can test any food is if one of 2 ministries in Japan requests testing. But both those ministries have never requested testing of whale or dolphin meat. That doesn't pass the smell test. And the Food Safety Commission admits dolphin meat is the most dangerous food in Japan. Yes, Japan's preeminent food safety experts said they are blocked from testing the most dangerous food in Japan by other parts of their same government. Dolphin sashimi, anyone?
皮膚だよ多分。あ、臭くね？あ、なんか臭いぞ。血の匂いがする。
Dolphin meat doesn't pass the smell test either. Now you know why Japan doesn't buy dolphin meat. The meat is rotten before people open it. It's rotten because lactic acid needed to kill bacteria post-mortem to delay rotting was already used up, so the meat rots quickly. It is spoiled before Japanese people open the package. The lactic acid was missing because dolphins used it fighting during their long and stressful dying process. And that's the end product of prolonged dolphin torture. Food that nobody wants. What an ironic waste. If dolphins actually had the instant death Japan has lied about them having for years, the meat might not be rotten. The Ministry of the Environment has tested dolphin meat. So have private researchers. But the Food Safety Commission's hands are tied. There is no regulation of Japan's most dangerous food. Even more astonishing, the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare tested Taiji residents for mercury. The levels were off the charts. They are very sick. This study received no media coverage. It was buried. More on that study in a moment. So there you have it. Animals are still tortured in Japan, Japanese people are very sick, and the government cover-up continues. Essentially, nothing has changed in Japan after the Cove. Here are some significant events before and after the Cove that you should know about. As mentioned, there are no laws for cetaceans in Japan, wild, in captivity, or dead as food. It's all a black market. Japanese activists worked on this issue in Japan for many decades before the Cove was made. The Cove wasn't even the first foreigner exposing this problem to the West. Hardy Jones was documenting Japanese dolphin slaughters back in 1979. Dolphin hunting was never a Taiji tradition. Historical records for Taiji Town and Isana fisheries, also in Taiji Town, confirm there were decades-long gaps between dolphin hunts. It was never practiced regularly. It was only luck. Dolphins that were found injured, wandering, or stranded were killed for food. There was no planning. Taiji never cared about killing dolphins because there was decade-long gaps between hunts. In the Cove, they tested dolphin meat for mercury and other dangers. They did not test Japanese people for mercury and other dangers. Here's where that Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare study comes in. The 2010 Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare study revealed people eating this food are very sick. Here are average mercury levels for Japanese people nationwide. Men are the higher number. Compare that to mercury levels for Taiji town residents, where men are also the higher number. This study's average was 11 parts per million. That's much higher than the national average of 2.47 parts per million. Two other studies of Taiji residents averaged much higher at 14.9 parts per million and 21.6 parts per million. The levels show Taiji residents have both acute and chronic poisoning. Check out these maximum levels of 139 ppm in a man and 80 ppm in a woman. Health problems begin at much lower levels. Another whale-eating nation, Denmark, had a comprehensive study that evaluated all their health problems from this food. It's so bad in Denmark, their study recommends ending this food forever in Denmark. Did you know Japan has chelation treatment clinics to remove mercury and other heavy metals from people who are sick from dolphin meat? Japan doesn't know this either. The Cove did not talk about this. Chelation treatment is a 6-month emergency detoxification protocol to remove mercury. This is all a secret inside Japan. Japanese chelation treatment clinics confirmed they have treated whale and dolphin meat consumers with very high levels of metal, specifically mercury. Okay, but what does this actually look like for someone sitting down and eating a meal in Japan? Let's use Japan's own guidelines for mercury to see. Japan recommends 80 grams of meat with every meal. Using these mercury levels from dolphins caught in Taiji, and using the Japanese government's guidelines for mercury consumption, which is 0.4 ppm per kilogram of body weight. Let's see if Japanese consumers are over the guidelines. If this pregnant woman ate 80 grams of this dolphin liver, her level would exceed Japan's safety levels by over 728,000%. If this girl ate 80 grams of that same liver meat, her levels would exceed Japan's safety limits by over 2,000,000%. Now imagine eating this regularly. But it's not just liver tissue. All these meat tissues, including muscle tissue, are all way over Japan's guidelines. It doesn't matter if it's total mercury or methyl mercury. Both are way over Japan's own guidelines. That's why Japanese people are sick. Did you notice I said guidelines many times? Because these are not laws. Just eat at your own risk, and good luck. Yeah, really sorry about that heart disease, ALS, infertility, and diabetes though. These are some of the health problems Denmark found in their dolphin and whale-eating communities. But Japan would never do these health studies in Japan. Instead, Japan only searches for the most extreme and rare neurological disease that happened once in Japan, 70 years ago. They use this as the litmus test for whale and dolphin meat safety. Basically, if you are not a complete cripple like in Minamata, Japan many decades ago, this food is safe to eat. This lie is repeated by the Japanese government and by the industry. See, there's no Minamata disease here. It's safe. Japan would never study other health problems that have been found in other countries eating cetaceans. Japan's priority is not protecting their own people, it's hating non-Japanese people by pushing food that nobody wants onto Japanese taxpayers. Imagine if they did long-term ALS, diabetes, infertility, heart disease studies, or any other studies on Taiji residents. But in Japan, we hide all our danger data, so nobody finds out that there's any problems here. And we run misdirection campaigns to mislead Japanese consumers, like claiming DHA and EPA are high in seafood, but not in mammals, which is what dolphins and whales are. But never mind that, because it's all the same. Seafood is all from the sea. And we think our Japanese populace is too stupid to know dolphins and whales aren't fish. Here's the Ministry of Fisheries caught lying, claiming no danger was found in prior studies and that cetaceans are high in DHA and EPA. Oh, it gets worse. The government, specifically the Ministry of the Environment, which oversees the Minamata Institute, claims selenium purifies mercury, so that's why whale and dolphin consumers are protected. Only they aren't protected. The Japanese government study proved they are sick. Also, selenium only purifies mercury if they have the same ratio. But they don't have the same ratio. If you eat fish, no problem. If you eat cetaceans, you are screwed. Selenium will not help you at all if you eat dolphins or whales. These Japanese people are protected from mercury because they only eat fish. These cetacean-eating Japanese people are sick. They are not protected by selenium or anything. Meat isn't tested anyway, so nothing could be enforced. It's all a black market inside Japan. On the activism side, foreigners started coming to Taiji after the Cove. They made it worse for dolphins. Taiji became an ecotourism destination, or eco-terrorism, depending on which side you're on. Here's what happened when the foreigners came to Taiji. Bring, mosh mosh. Yes, the foreigners are here again. Okay, we'll send the police to them right now. And then the Japanese government sees these videos and these articles and gives Taiji more financial support. Foreign activism feeds Japan's needed racism narrative. This issue is supported in Japan because Japanese people believe foreigners are racist. That's always bad for dolphins. Luckily, foreigners have stopped coming to Taiji after the pandemic, and let's hope they stay away. Step 1. Remove foreigners from this whole situation, so the Japanese and Japanese government must focus on food danger and their own government lies.
The solution must come from within Japan.
From Japanese people and from the Japanese government.
There are Japanese activists still helping in Taiji. They are vegans viewed as lifestyle zealots, so their animal cruelty messages are ignored. They say little about food danger and nothing about the government lies. And they definitely don't talk about dolphin hunting not being a Taiji tradition. The activism movement targets Taiji only, but most dolphins are not killed in Taiji. It makes no sense. This is a personal vendetta against Taiji, but it's not working. About activism not working, in 2015, WAZA forced its Japanese member, JAZA, to vote on whether to stop using dolphins from Taiji. Activism at WAZA HQ in Switzerland forced this issue. Well done. It was a brief activism success, but for captivity only, not for dolphins being killed. At least that's what people thought at the time. Here's what happened. JAZA members voted overwhelmingly to stop getting Taiji dolphins. JAZA members could no longer get wild dolphins. They agreed to only breed dolphins in Japan going forward. But many of the votes were from zoos that don't have dolphins. So aquariums with dolphins were mad at the zoos without dolphins for voting with their conscience and not their bank accounts. How dare you do what's right? Then 3 angry aquariums that lost the vote left JAZA to continue buying wild dolphins from Taiji. About those angry aquariums that left JAZA, their ringleader, Enoshima Aquarium, aka Enoshima Marine Corporation, created a new group in 2017 called JACRA to support Taiji. This name sucked. So in 2020, Enoshima Marine Corporation transitioned JACRA into Japan Aquarium Association, or JAA, to continue supporting Taiji, but with a better title. Nobody wanted to join JACRA because research was in its name. Today, JAA still does little for its members. They do not advance captive breeding for dolphins in Japan. JAA was born as a result of JAZA members voting to stop getting Taiji dolphins. Aquariums existed in Japan 65 years before their controversial WAZA vote. You think they could have made an aquarium association sooner. It took supporting dolphin animal torture to finally unite them in the end. How pathetic. And now, JAZA allows its non-Taiji supporting members to also be members of Taiji supporting JAA. Can you say conflict of interest? Yeah, we promise not to get Taiji dolphins direct, but we're going to join JAA and be friends with people getting Taiji dolphins direct. That way, we can get Taiji dolphins from them indirect. What's worse, JAZA does not check if its members are getting wild dolphins. JAZA claims to have a DNA database, and they say, "It would be impossible for wild dolphins or their DNA to be introduced into our database without noticing." But they simply don't check anything. They have their DNA database answer handy to pacify anyone questioning their integrity on their breeding-only WAZA pledge. And WAZA does not audit or check JAZA or its members in Japan. WAZA has never visited Japan to check JAZA member dolphin DNA to see if it's wild DNA or bred in captivity. The problem is, none of this adds up. Japan has the worst captive breeding in the world. Japan cannot successfully breed dolphins in captivity to replenish their captive death rate. But dolphin shows are not closing in Japan. So clearly, JAZA members are cheating 10 years after their WAZA promise. Their shows should be closing. They need wild dolphins or wild dolphin DNA to stay ahead of their death rates, so dolphin shows can stay open. Japan has the worst captive breeding rates globally because they don't develop their breeding programs. Why would they? They have Taiji. In 2018, JAZA said the ratio of aquarium-bred dolphins accounts for 20%. But not one dolphin show has ended 7 years after this article. You would think many JAZA aquariums would be forced to end their dolphin shows by now. This lie is more apparent because Japan also cannot breed the many different dolphin species they have at their shows. Look at all these species that are only caught in Taiji. They cannot breed these species successfully in Japan. The entertainment workhorse is the bottlenose dolphin. Bottlenose dolphins have been Japan's limited breeding success. But other species have failed in Japan. Clearly, JAZA is lying about its members getting wild dolphins indirectly or wild dolphin DNA, and nobody checks JAZA. JAZA stated that bred dolphins in captivity are about the same cost in the end as buying wild dolphins. So, everyone simply just buys wild dolphins for ease. Because captive dolphins keep dying before they reach age 1. JAZA members can get Taiji dolphins indirectly in a number of ways. After all, JAZA members are also now JAA members. So basically, there's no progress now. The successful 2015 WAZA activism just pushed dolphin captivity into more lies, secrecy, and workarounds. JAZA members are getting what they need from Taiji to stay open. It is undeniable now. Also, no dolphin show has ended in Japan. There's no progress there either. Dolphin groups use Japan's images to fundraise. Then they make progress for cetaceans outside Japan. Unfortunately, that's not Japan. This is misleading and disingenuous fundraising. On the torture and killing side, after the Cove was released, Taiji started hiding their torture inside tents. Dolphins and whales are killed in other places, but tents aren't used. Most are killed on boats offshore. The kill method is stabbing, and it always has been. This is clearly stated on the catch quota every year. There is no instant death for dolphins in Japan. This is a lie. It would say spinal cord cutting on this Ministry of Fisheries catch quota if the instant death lie was true. It's the same random stabbing of multiple organs, then slow death. Nothing has changed except trying to hide. On the legal side, a Japanese lawsuit was attempted against animal torture in Taiji. The case was thrown out by the judge as having no standing because the Japanese plaintiff could not prove it was his dolphin being harmed. On the activism side, a Japanese activist was housed and paid by an outside group to live full-time in Taiji. Why? Because only Taiji residents can request records and file complaints. So outside groups created a local resident to be their voice in Taiji, to investigate, document, and swamp the city with complaints. Although foreigners stopped coming to Taiji, there is still a march by Japanese activists every summer. They are vegan animal rights activists. They are shouted at by right-wing people every year. Basically, they are owned by the Japanese right wing, because they don't say dolphin hunting is not a Taiji tradition, or that Japanese people are sick, or that the government is lying about everything. Japan is very far from knowing the truth on this entire issue. Japanese activists need to shift and focus on food danger and government lies. The lies go deeper and deeper still. Remember the Ministry of Health, who has never requested dolphin or whale meat be tested by the Food Safety Commission? Japan has the highest incidence rate of ALS in the world. And guess where that happens? Yup, where these exotic dolphins are eaten for food and nowhere else in Japan. Now this is a compelling reason to target Taiji. The Ministry of Health does joint research with Mie University regarding this peculiar ALS problem in Wakayama and Kii Peninsula. Together, they lied about ALS in this region. They said there is no special diet at all that could explain why Wakayama has the highest incidence rate of ALS in the world. Well, it looks like this diet is very special. These exotic dolphins are only caught here and eaten locally. Dolphin consumers are invisible when it comes to health and safety. But when foreigners arrive, suddenly this food is a cherished local tradition that everyone should know about. The Japanese government either thinks Japanese cetacean consumers don't exist at all, or they are Shohei Ohtani level important. Now you know why Japan is hiding all this. Their lies would be exposed. Lies like the Food Standards Examination Division at the Ministry of Health claiming Japan does not have high mercury levels, hoping nobody would find their study showing Japanese people with high mercury. They lie about all of this food. And remember the Ministry of Fisheries, who also never requested whale or dolphin meat testing by the Food Safety Commission? The same people who lie about animal torture filmed and documented every year? When asked about mercury levels for their own food safety formula, this formula, the Ministry of Fisheries Food Safety Division said they don't need to know mercury levels for their own mercury formula. They said mercury levels are not important. Yes, of course, and airplane fuel gauges are also not important. The only two ministries that can request this food testing are lying about it in a number of ways. And the lying is being done by their respective food safety divisions. Imagine if these government food safety lies were spread throughout Japan. What if foreign groups that fundraise off Taiji use their money to share these lies in Japan? What would happen in Japan if Japanese people learned there are no laws for this food or this animal torture? Regarding activism, there are no education campaigns inside Japan. There is nothing. Outside groups use fundraising for lawsuits against Taiji, but not for teaching Japan to make change happen from within Japan. There is no momentum inside Japan because Japan does not even know dolphins are killed for food. Japan knows about whales, not small whales. Taiji Town had been blacking out public records requests to block activist probing. But it was recently ruled that Taiji Town must now disclose their records and not black them out. These are what donations are going towards: legal attacks against Taiji. There are no laws for these animals, so good luck creating a case against Taiji. There isn't even government tracking of dolphin sales to aquariums inside Japan. It's invisible. They must be self-reported on a non-itemized annual tax summary submitted to Japan's NTA, National Tax Agency, by companies selling dolphins. Dolphin sales are lumped in with all other finances of companies selling dolphins. There is no itemized summary for tax authorities to review individual dolphin sales inside Japan. Taxes are submitted to local prefectures, and Wakayama would protect companies selling dolphins and not ask for any dolphin sales records. They aren't needed. Only an annual summary is. It would be very easy to not report dolphin sales. Dolphin sellers are not audited, and they undergo no scrutiny by the NTA after getting a pass from prefectural tax authorities. Catching and selling these animals is invisible in Japan. JAZA and the NTA confirm the tax and tracking process of dolphin sales in Japan. The government and tax authorities know nothing about dolphin movements or sales. The only thing the government knows is, these are the places that can catch dolphins, and here is their limit. That's it. The government doesn't know how many dolphins are killed or how many are sold to aquariums. You have an industry that lies regularly about this food and animal torture, being asked to self-report in good faith their dolphin sales. Wow. The public records activists are trying to see will not reveal sales omissions that were never recorded in the first place. This industry is perfect for tax evasion on high-value dolphin sales. So why is all this happening in Japan? Because Japanese people don't know about it. Many Japanese don't like whale hunting because it is a tax burden on people who don't eat this food, which is basically everyone in Japan. Whale and dolphin meat is dead in Japan. There is a push to bring it back. They have opened whale meat vending machines, and there are campaigns trying to justify milking taxpayers for food Japan does not want anymore. Japan doesn't know about dolphin hunting. Why? Because no one told them about it. Outside groups using Taiji images for fundraising say change must come from within Japan, but then they do nothing to start that change in Japan. And hating on Taiji has only gotten more support for Taiji. That's the sad truth. It has not focused attention where it is needed, and that's food danger. The government can continue to ignore animal torture as it always has. It cannot ignore danger to humans if the truth is shared across Japan. Will Japan ever learn about this issue by themselves? Without funded foreign groups helping start this in Japan? No, they won't. Much more needs to be done in Japan than making a documentary, then pretending there was progress in Japan years later. Basically, cetaceans are screwed in Japan until a lot more people know what's happening here. The current Taiji-centric movement needs a strategy shift to food danger and government lies. Everything else has failed and will fail. No dolphin shows have closed in Japan, and none will. When Paul Watson was arrested last year, Japan erupted on social media at the thought he would be extradited to Japan to face prison time. Then, 5 months later, when he was not extradited to Japan, Japan raged on social media. This is a search for sea shepherd in Japanese on X. All these posts are from just one morning, 5 days after Paul Watson's release. They were still talking about it, and they still are. Taiji will always have support because it concerns foreigners. The only way to impact dolphin killing in Japan is to remove foreigners from the equation and start to teach Japan the truth about government lies and food danger. The first thing Japan should do is protect their own people. If Japan knew about any of this, they would agree. The Japanese government will likely never change. They decided food lies are enough to continue killing dolphins. But if you teach Japan the truth, the very small number of people buying this food will get even smaller. This is how you stop killing dolphins in Japan.